Hello, Home Slices. It's Kira with Home Slice Adulting coming to you with my catch up reviews for the two episodes of Love and Marriage Huntsville that I missed during the time when I was preparing to go on vacation and the time that I was on my vacation. So, thank you for clicking on this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who you think will enjoy it. Now, I am going to try to accomplish an astounding feat of keeping my recaps of each episode down to 10 minutes or less. Okay. So that means that this video should not be longer than 20 minutes because I need to go over Love and Marriage Huntsville season 1, episode 15, which was titled something like babies and whatnot and all that stuff. And then the other one is Love and Marriage Huntsville season 1, episode 16, which was titled Thera-pissed. So I'm going to go ahead and get into my review for each of those episodes in this single video. And we're going to try to keep it down to less than 20 minutes. So let's start now. Now, we have at the beginning of of episode 15, we have Mel and Marceau chatting. Mel tells Marceau about, how the infidelity situation is actually still fairly current and that things haven't necessarily gotten better. In fact, they've kind of gotten worse. And so Marceau in the situation has yet another opportunity for him to defend himself. Mel says, as the man in his life, as the influences in his life, you all should have been telling him, it's not okay to cheat on your wife. You need to be an upstanding man or whatever. And Marcel was like, well, what makes you think we weren't telling him that? And Mel's response was, well, if he's around people who are telling him one thing and doing another, it comes off as hypocritical and he's not going to listen to you, which the subtext says that, okay, Marceau, you're out here cheating on your wife, but how that gives you no authority to tell Martel not to cheat on his wife. Yet another opportunity for Marceau to say, I'm an upstanding man. I've never cheated on my wife. But he knows that Martel could probably produce proof, and that Mel probably could too. So he neither confirms nor denies. Moving on, we see Mel and Martel at the doctor's office to confirm their pregnancy. And of course, she is pregnant. We already knew that. And there's a little bit of a discussion about them raising the kids together. Martel wants the newest baby to be raised the same way the previous 3 babies have been raised, and that's in a nuclear family. And Mel says she's not really feeling that. Like, she's not really feeling that option. And I think that the best situation for children to be in is in a nuclear family, but there are tons and tons and tons of families out there, probably the majority of families that don't raise children in nuclear families. They have stepkids, there are single parents, there are people who raise their children in a village, and they don't have to be a nuclear family or a non-divorced family in order to raise their children successfully. So co-parenting is a thing. Moving on. Also, Martel just comes off as like the pregnancy means that he has Mel now. He's like, I got you now. Like, oh, you're going to stick around now. I think Mel is kind of playing with both Martel and our emotions by pretending to be moving forward with even thinking about a divorce. I think that she is trying to appear strong because nowadays, as a society, we tend to shame people for staying in marriages where people cheat. And so, to get the heat off of her back, she has to make it look like she's considering leaving him. Moving on, we see Tisha. She has a speech impediment. She learns that her mama had a speech impediment too. Marceau, apparently, despite the fact that Tisha is actually working now, is still phoning it in when it comes to being a parent. And is basically coming out to complain about the kids playing around and bumping around upstairs while he's trying to relax. And Tisha's mama was like, well, you could have went upstairs and looked after your kids while they being unnormal. Tell me what's the difference is between being a daddy and a father. I can't. She has this way of talking. It's really hard to describe. But anyway, there was something that annoyed me during the time where Miss Wanda, who is Tisha's mama, was kind of getting on Marceau. Tisha had this smirk on her face. And the smirk to me kind of said, like, well, you tell him, regarding her mom telling Marceau off. And I don't like the fact that Tisha does not seem mature enough to be able to express herself and be as assertive as her mother is. And that she's using her mother's presence to communicate to Martell things that she should be able to communicate to him herself. That's a little concerning to me. Like, your mom is not there to be the referee in your marriage. And I think because Miss Wanda knows that her daughter is not as assertive, Miss Wanda is taking extra liberties to be involved in their marriage in a way that I feel is inappropriate. But moving on, we see Mel tell her mom that she's pregnant and that essentially it's bad timing, and it really does complicate things. And then this episode could have been moms tell everything, because this is the second mom telling us something that apparently their daughters did not know about them. That she almost aborted Mel, but whatever. Moving on. Next, we see the whole Kiowa situation. I wish that I had done this review so I could dive a little bit deeper into the situation. I don't necessarily like Kiowa, but I like her more than I thought I would. I thought I was going to have 100% total kind of disdain for her, and I don't necessarily think so. And I think the thing that kind of tipped the scales for me was the fact that she was under the impression that Kimmy and Maurice started dating while she and Maurice were still married. And, that can cloud your judgment, when that's going on. Sorry, y'all. I believe Kimmy when she says that Maurice and Kyra were divorced when they started dating. But moving on, the whole situation that Kyra was kind of nasty about was about Kimmy talking about, okay, well, you told me this 7 years ago. You sent me this Facebook message about, calling me a skank or a slut because I wear bikinis. And Kai was all judgmental behind talking about, well, as a mother, I don't think it's appropriate. And it's like, what does being a mom have to do with the type of bathing suit that you wear? Kai, well, look, I'm a big woman. I have no denial of me being a big woman. I have a online clothing store that sells clothes to women of all sizes. In particular, it's about being body positive and all that kind of stuff. And if big women want to wear bikinis or want to wear certain things that they shouldn't wear according to societal standards, I'm all for it. But I think that there's a little bit of jealousy involved. Kimmy has a great body, and it doesn't make sense for Kyla to judge Kimmy for wearing bikinis unless there was some jealousy going on. So that's silly. They had a conversation about motherhood and how Kimmy didn't want to be a mom again, and Kimmy had to explain herself. And it was funny because tables kind of turned on Maurice when Kimmy was explaining, well, I just want, Maurice to help more often. And I don't really get a lot of help around the house. So now that, your son is going to be moving in with us, is it just going to be me taking care of monster. And Kai would seem to understand that. I mean, having been married to Maurice before, I'm sure he didn't, he wasn't Susie Homemaker when he was married to Kiowa. So I think that was a little bit of opportunity for them to gain some understanding and kind of join forces on. So while I don't think that, I feel like Maurice's happiness and joy at the end of that interaction was kind of like too much, and almost rubbing Kimmy's face in the fact that this idea that he had that he didn't tell her about is going over kind of well. I feel like his energy was not being very considerate of his wife's feelings. I do think that it went a lot better than maybe we were all anticipating it went. So, Kimmy's son, whose name I cannot remember right now, I feel so bad about that. He has a birthday party. He gets advice from all the men, some of which is bad advice, but from people who shouldn't be giving advice. But we're not going to get into that because we don't have time. And then lastly, we see Marceau and Martel have another conversation. It starts off a little testy a little bit because Marceau is talking to Martel and saying, your situation is not my situation. That's not what's going on over here. And Martel is like, are you really going to lie to my face like that? But it doesn't get out of control. Marceau flips the switch again, flips it on Martel and says, well, Mel told me that old girl called. And it's like, what is Marceau trying to do? Is he saying, well, there is clearly evidence of you having been cheating on your wife for a long time, and not only that, she called again recently. Why are you focusing on what's going on with me when you clearly have your own problems to deal with? Is that what Marceau is trying to say? Or is Marceau trying to get on Martel's good side so that he doesn't produce evidence of Marceau's infidelity? I don't know. It's so weird, y'all. Like, you know how people talk about how women hold grudges and are very catty, and how men can have disagreements and get over it really quickly. I am suspicious about how quickly they had this pretty civil conversation after Martel on national TV accused Marceau of cheating on his wife. I feel like even for a man who gets over disagreements with other men fairly quickly, that's like a no-go. Like, that's a no-go for me. So I'm very suspicious of that. And I think Martel may have some evidence, or may be able to produce receipts or find somebody on Instagram that will corroborate this 20 girlfriend story. So I think Marceau is treading lightly, and he is benefiting from having chosen a wife that's silly enough to not go Inspector Gadget and start looking through phones, checking text messages, checking voicemails, going through Instagram, figuring out, oh, this is when he said he was on a business trip, but no, he was over here in this club. Hire a private investigator. Like, Tisha, you better get it together and figure this stuff out, because a lot of times rumors have at least a little bit of truth behind them. So that's going to be it for my review of the first episode that I missed, which was episode 15. Now I'm going to come back and give you all my give you my review of episode 16. All right, y'all, I'm back. And in the spirit of trying to keep this video under 20 minutes, I'm going to just blaze through my thoughts on Love and Marriage, Huntsville, season 1, episode 16, right here, right fast. So the first thing we have is Mel and Martel having a conversation. Martel is upset that Mel keeps telling their business to people. Y'all are on TV. She told one of your co-stars on TV about a situation, and it got back to you. You all are supposed to be close friends. You all are in the same circle. If you want her to stop telling business, stop creating business, like she said. But he invites her to therapy and she agrees. Moving on, we see Kimmy throwing an event. It's a toiletry drive for the community. And clearly Kimmy is still upset about the interaction with Kyla. You ever have an interaction with somebody that's been a long time coming, and it doesn't go the way you wanted it to go, or in that moment you don't really think much about it, but then you start ruminating over it, and then you start getting mad all over again. That's what it feels like to me that Kimmy is doing. And I really wish that, as much as I like Kimmy, I really want to see a more aggressive and less passive side of her. She clearly still has feelings about the whole Kyle situation, and hopefully we get some resolve at some point. Next, we see Martell and Mel on a radio show with Tony Terrell. Martell finally changed his number. They talk about the comeback group drama, and Mel uses very diplomatic language. Martell is uses less diplomatic language. He kind of spoke up when he didn't really have to. I'll say that, about them basically. We all gonna do our own thing. We all going solo, right? So, like Tony Terrell said. But anyways, she brings up the whole cheating situation, which I feel like Martell dealt with that a lot better than I thought he would. And I really don't understand why, because he got so upset with Marceau regarding talking about it. But now he's on a radio station in the city that he lives in, also being recorded on TV talking about the same situation. So I'm trying to figure out, is he more settled in the situation now that more people know about it? His comfort with kind of talking about it was threw me off a little bit. But anyways, moving on. Marceau and Tisha are talking about, going to this game night, and Marceau finally tells Tisha about the girl that Martell was dealing with calling, and I'm sorry, y'all, I'm so tired. And Mel answering the phone, and so so Tisha finally gets some like sympathy, or empathy rather, empathy and understanding for what's going on with Mel, and understanding that, her marriage is still on the rocks. Things have not necessarily gotten better, or they got better for a little while and now they're back worse. And now Mel is dealing with stuff emotionally, and the last thing on her mind is her relationship with Tisha. And I think that came to the forefront of her mind after Marceau told her that. So it was either they stay home and have 45 minutes of wild, crazy sex, or they go to the the game night. So they went to the game night. So moving on, we see Kimmy talking about how she's upset that nobody wants to do the things in the community that she wants to do. She has, a little sour feelings about that, some sour grapes. Next, we see that that old Martell. I feel like I usually don't say as much, but with so many M's, it requires me my brain a little extra processing time to figure out which M to say next, right? So Martell slips up with his math and basically gives away to Kimmy and Maurice that Mel is pregnant. And when I say Maurice's face was the funniest thing that I have seen in a while. Maurice's face was like, "Are you pregnant?" I thought that was so funny. But she does reveal that they are pregnant, and of course, Mel wants to keep it a secret. And of course, Tisha walks in on the conversation where Mel is telling Kimmy to keep her pregnancy a secret. And of course, because Tisha's brain regarding friendship is like in the ninth grade, she assumes that they are talking about her, because of course they very quickly change the subject when she comes around. So ain't nobody talking about you, Tisha. Moving on, they have a conversation, Mel, Kimmy, and Tisha, and they finally kind of get somewhere. Tisha actually owns up to some of the stuff that she talked about. Mel actually apologizes for some stuff, and it looks like they have taken a step forward in getting back to being good friends. So hopefully they stay on that path. They play Huntsville-opoly. Old Sadaric brings over Huntsville-opoly. Y'all, there was another couple there. I can't remember the wife's name, but the husband's name was so ugly that I had to remember it. LeBaric? What kind of name is that? Anyways, apparently during Huntsville-opoly, divorce was in the cards for Mel and Martell. But Kimmy brings up the comeback group. It's definitely the wrong time. They're supposed to be having fun, hence the term game night. But instead, she brings up the issue about the radio show and them not talking about the things that the other people are doing in the community. Martell uses this as an opportunity to say, none of y'all are doing what I was doing for the community. And things just kind of get out of hand. What I will say is, even though Mel is kind of against the comeback group. I don't think she would actually say those terms, but she's basically against the comeback group. There was something that she said that I agreed with. Kimmy's invitation or flyer, post or whatever for this event that she's putting together did say, come meet the comeback group on the flyer, and that was not authorized by the other members of the comeback group. And I think that it should be. Here's what I think the comeback group should be. So y'all know how let's use Odd Future. No, let's use Wu-Tang. Okay. Wu-Tang Clan is an umbrella rap collective, right? So you got Madman, Method Man, ODB, you got RZA, Jizza, all the other peoples, right? All the other members of the Wu-Tang Clan. And, Wu-Tang, they can use that umbrella term for a bunch of stuff. They can do a Wu-Tang album where all of them collaborate together, but they still have, Method Man still has his album. Redman still has his album. Ghostface Killah still has his album. They can do things separately and come together at the same time without there being too many ties. I think that the comeback group should operate similarly. Let the comeback group be an umbrella group as long as most of them, the majority of them, agree that say Kimmy can have her event under the comeback group name, then let's do it. We show up to these events, we show our faces because we are the comeback group. We whatever level of approval that they need from each other, whether it's like, hey, I want to use the name for this, or hey, I need to approve the use of these vendors, whatever they need to do. Have the comeback group be an umbrella and let the Holtz and the two Scotts do what they want to do under the umbrella as long as everybody's okay with it. They show up to support each other's events and people are none the wiser. Kimmy could have planned the event, but all of them show up to show support to their community. And all we know is the comeback group planned an event. Same thing with the Holtz, same thing with the Scotts. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion. So hopefully they figure something out. Now, moving on. Tisha takes Kimmy to the side, which, interestingly, I feel like that was the right thing to do. Tisha kind of read the room and took Kimmy out of it, which was actually fairly mature. Okay, so Kimmy, of course, is still in her feelings, but Tisha uses this as an opportunity to say, "Were y'all talking about me outside?" And Kimmy was like, "No, trust me. No, we were not talking about you." And old Tisha, "I don't believe you." Girl, Tisha, y'all, there's something wrong with Tisha. Something wrong with her. And then I thought about something. While Kimmy was stewing in her own feelings and decided not to go back upstairs to rejoin the game night with Tisha. Do you all think that Kimmy is immersing herself in community service and putting on her own event and using the comeback group name without approval to try to regain some type of control? I think that it may be a factor considering how she may feel a loss of control regarding the whole Monster and Kiowa and Xavier situation with them moving down to Huntsville. And so she's losing an aspect of control in her own life because basically the train has already left the station with or without Kimmy. And so the idea was already put in Kiowa's head Her husband had already made the offer, and now we're at this spot where, with or without Kimmy, Monster's moving down. His mom is pretty much all but said that she's moving down with her husband. And now this puts Kimmy in this really uncomfortable situation that she really didn't sign up for. She didn't sign up for her relationship to be tested in the way that it is being tested with his ex-wife, with, her husband's ex-wife moving down to the same area she is in. So I think that she is being a little bit more aggressive than she normally comes off as, because she's holding on to trying to maintain control when it comes to her marriage. She might feel like she's losing it. Tell me what you think about that theory, okay? Moving on, we'll get to the last part. My favorite part of the episode is when they go to therapy. Mel and Martell go to therapy, and it starts off really good. Even though Mel and Martell are not on the same page, they're not quite on the same side of the hump, right? That's what Mel said. But anyways, Martell originally opens up and is very vulnerable at first. And I was like, oh, there's hope for him. When he starts to talk about how his wife was not there for him, where he couldn't talk to her on the phone for more than 5 minutes. And she really kind of became too busy for him. She didn't want to perform certain sexual favors for him. And so he's like, well, I'm Superman. I'm a great dad. I'm good looking. Somebody else will take care of that and fill that void. And I think that he was being honest and vulnerable. And I think that while it was hurtful, Mel received it. Then there was a switch that flipped, and it got real nasty and narcissistic. Okay. It when there was a mention of time management, that's when the switch flipped, and it went from, oh, I'm just a better manager of my time. And to me, that came off as, oh, the reason why I was able to pretend to be, a great husband and have a girlfriend on the side is because I managed my time. And it's like, that's just a slap in the face of saying, because you can't manage your time as well, you spent 2.5 years not realizing that something was going on. That's the way I took it, but it's not my husband. Anyways, that's when things really flipped, and he was saying basically, without me, she would still be a school teacher, as if anything's wrong with that. And basically just taking credit for the star, her rising star, as she called it, and saying that she doesn't give him credit. And when she's being awarded for stuff, he's there supporting her, and she doesn't mention him enough, and she doesn't say thank you enough, and all that jazz. And it got nasty and narcissistic at that moment. And Mel says, that's not something that I need from you. And I think that kind of speaks to love languages a little bit. I think that words of affirmation are very important to Martell, and they're not important to Mel. And I think that was a part of the whole love languages thing, is that when you have a love language, your instinct is to provide love in the way that you want to receive it. So Martell wants words of affirmation, but Mel's brain is not wired to give him that because she doesn't need it herself. So then, come on, Dr. Kitson Francis tells Martell what he needs to tell him. Somewhere in your history, somebody didn't validate you, okay? Somebody did not validate you. And so you are holding your wife accountable for somebody else's mistakes. And you are transferring, which is actually a psychological term, transferring that energy from not being acknowledged and placing it on your wife, and creating this unbearable expectation for Mel. And he's like, well, what's wrong with that? And Mel, it's too much of a burden. It's too much of a burden. And to make somebody pay for somebody else's mistakes is indeed too much of a burden. It's one thing for you to tell your wife, I need more words of affirmation from you. It's another thing to tell your wife, I need you to make up for all the times that I wasn't acknowledged as a child. I need you to make up for all of the football games that I played in and won, and my daddy, who was in jail, wasn't there to congratulate me. That's too much of a burden. It actually is. So I, like Dr. Francis, He holds Martell accountable, and I would be surprised if Martell even goes back to Dr. Francis, because Dr. Francis is holding him accountable in a way that Mel can't. And it's weird. It might be because he's a man. I'm not really sure. Or because he's older and he has more respect and kind of looks at him more as a father figure, I guess. But a lot of times when people are held accountable, they like to back off. So my hope is that Martell doesn't shy away from Dr. Francis holding him accountable, and that he uses that to make himself understand that he can trust Dr. Francis, and that Dr. Francis is not just going to tell him what he wants to hear, but what he needs to hear as a professional. So this video definitely went a little bit longer than I thought it would, but not that much over, probably like 6 or 7 minutes. So thank you for watching. Thank you for catching up with me, or allowing me to catch up on the past 2 episodes. The new episode actually comes out later today because it's past midnight right now. And I will come and I will be back on schedule. That feels great. So thank you for clicking on this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who you think will enjoy it. Tell me your thoughts on these past 2 episodes, and then be sure to check out my review of the upcoming episode. Thanks for watching. Peace out, home slices.